question is, integrity for me is getting up here and talking about this in the context of the death of my son. What does integrity mean to you?
I'm sorry, I can't see you with the lights, but I'm very sorry that...
I don't want sorries.
Okay.
I want action. We've been approached by so many other families. All we want to do is to make sure that youth and adolescent mental health care beds at the hospital so no other kids dies. Very simple.
Right, James Ross.
Yeah. Mr. Gill, thank you. I can only imagine the courage that it would have took to get up and ask that question, and I'm sure that the sense and the response that you felt from this room demonstrates how we as a community feel for what has happened. And as a father of a 4-year-old boy and a 2.5-year-old girl, I can only imagine the trauma and the challenge that you've been through. So thank you for asking the question. And in large part, it was your experience and what happened to you and your advocacy since that point in time that led to more funding being allocated in last year's budget specifically to support mental health services on the Northern Beaches. In addition to that, this issue of mental health...
I know I'm not meant to get when the hospital was established in November of 2018, there were no youth and adolescent mental health care beds. There were 50,000 kids on the beaches.
Okay, let's just... Yeah. Okay.
So, no, at all. And the issue of mental health, particularly in young people on our northern beaches, has been an issue for a number of years. And it's never been entirely quite clear why. We live in a beautiful part of the world surrounded by wonderful people. What I did 2 years ago was bring together a number of Northern Beaches mental health providers that focus on youth mental health. Lifeline, 180, Urban Association, and a host of others, to get together at Parliament to have a discussion with all the stakeholders together and the government to determine what we could do to fix it, short, medium and long term. That was my commitment to try and bring about a resolution to the issue. What came out of that was additional funding to repair and remedy the issue that you've raised. And we're committed to ensuring that the service that young people on the Northern Beaches get when it comes to mental health services is second to none and better than anywhere else that you can find in New South Wales. That is a personal commitment that I give to you, and I'll keep working to try and deliver that day in and day out.
My name's Andrew Gill. We lost our beautiful little son, Joshua Gill, on the 15th of August 2021. At 8 a.m. in the morning, 3 police officers knocked on our door and they informed us that Joshua was deceased. Joshua was a missing person that night. He had lost his way terribly during the COVID lockdowns. 4 days prior to the 15th August 2021, he was brought to the Northern Beaches Hospital in handcuffs by police. He was intoxicated. He was 4 times over the legal limit. Police suspected that he knocked himself unconscious in police custody. I know all this because we did a Freedom of Information request on ambulance records. The hospital did not inform us that our 14-year-old child had been admitted to the emergency department. That is a fact. The hospital, in written correspondence, has confirmed that with us, and they've apologised for that. Not once during his 4-hour stay that night, that morning, did they call us. That wasn't an isolated event. Josh was taken to that hospital that year 7 times prior under police or ambulance escort. He was scheduled under the Mental Health Care Act 6 times that year alone. But on that morning, they'd had enough of Josh. He was a troubled child rather than seeing him as a child who was troubled. Because he was over 14, we, his parents, didn't have full transparency over his medical records. They weren't shared with us. His discharge notes for that night were not sent to his GP, were not sent to Westmead Children's Hospital. The Northern Beaches Hospital medical record system does not communicate with other public hospitals. After the death of our son, I went on a mission to work out what happened. I blamed myself, I'm his dad, but I also blamed the lack of care and systems and help for young people with problems. They are young people with problems. They are not to be discarded. This is what we have uncovered. And I preface what I'm about to say with this. I'm a current practicing solicitor in New South Wales. I say what I'm about to say because I'm concerned deeply about public health when patients, particularly young people, attend the Northern Beaches Hospital of the Northern Beaches in New South Wales. Here's what we have uncovered. The hospital was paid for with public money. Around $1.2 billion went to a private company at the time called Healthscope. Healthscope run the public hospital. They are a private company. They're in it to make money. That private company does not even pay $1 a year to rent the land and the car park at the site. Source of that information, land title records. Doesn't pay $1 a year. The state paid for that company to build the hospital. So the company itself didn't pay anything. That's what I believe. My review of the financial records for the Northern Sydney Local Health District, who is the state entity that contracts with this private provider, my reading of the financial statements, which are publicly available, suggest that we, the people of New South Wales, are paying $500 million a year to the private company masquerading as a public hospital, which in fact is owned by a Cayman Islands listed entity. Source of that information, ASIC records. Can we see who owns the Cayman Islands listed entity? Absolutely not. We believe it's owned by Brookfield Asset Management, which is a Canadian listed infrastructure company. Its stated objective is to make 20% on profits, on revenues per year, I should say. It would appear from the financial records that we pay $500 million a year to the hospital, to the private hospital for the services it provides. That means $100 million a year is hived off to a company sitting offshore as profits. That's $100 million. How much is $100 million worth? Here's what it's worth. Manly Hospital costs the government $91 million a year to run. Mona Vale Hospital costs the government $90 million to run. Source of that, financial statements for the Northern Sydney Local Health District. That's $180 million, 181 to be precise. We are paying $500 million for a hospital with 30% less public beds. So that's more than twice the cost for less of a service than these two hospitals. Those two hospitals are no longer around anymore. The deal does not make sense. Let's summarise it. $500 million a year we pay, $100 million goes offshore in profits. They don't pay anything in rent per year. And we, the people of New South Wales, paid to build the hospital. If you think that's the end of the story, it's not. I've had written correspondence from the Northern Sydney Local Health District recently that says pointedly that if the private company who is operating the public section of the hospital, if that private company delivers substandard, subpar care, they are not penalised financially for that. I'll say that again. If they don't deliver a proper service, there's no penalty. Therefore, in my mind, the incentive is not to deliver proper services. Getting back to youth and adolescent mental health, when the hospital was established in November of 2018, when it opened, it did not have one youth and adolescent mental health care bed, not one. Yet there being 50,000 young people on the beaches. Not one bed, for 50,000 people, young people who need help, go to a hospital and their parents is a place of refuge, not to be turned away. In June of last year, Minister Hazzard promised 4 acute mental health care beds at the hospital and a whole litany of drug and alcohol care packages for youth on the Northern Beaches. None of that has been delivered. There are not 4 beds at the hospital now. There are no beds. Youth and adolescents arrive at the hospital in desperate states. Since we went public with the death of our son and the circumstances leading up to it, we have been bombarded with families that have been in similar states with us. Luckily, a lot of them, their children are alive, some of them aren't, and they cannot believe the deplorable level of services at that hospital. If things could not get worse, they do. Because it's a private company running the hospital, it's not subject to freedom of information laws or the state GIPA laws, government information protocols in New South Wales. So a normal person, a member of the public, can't request information. You have to subpoena it from the private company. Good luck subpoenaing them. I tried in my private criminal action. They've got the best lawyers globally, the largest law firms. They'll fight you to hill and dale. So we have a hospital, a private hospital, making $500 million a year of us, pretending to care for public patients, who put profits before people, owned by a Cayman Islands entity, are not penalised for substandard care, do not pay $1 a year in rent for the premises. What have we done? And on top of it off, they have no proper and adequate mental health care facilities for our kids. Surely the children on Northern Beaches deserve more. Surely they deserve more. And we have gone public with this, our family, Di and myself, to try and do our best that Josh's death actually means something, and we bring to the public domain these stats because they are horrific.
Healthscope, the Northern Beaches Hospital operator, has another 41 private hospitals around the country in every state. They were sold off to the Caribbean, to a mob, Brookfield, which doesn't pay any tax. They're not reinvesting in the community. They're here to pillage Australian public assets. They are now bidding for a very large energy company, Origin Energy. They took Aveo, the nursing home empire, to Bermuda, of all places. So that's controlled in Bermuda now. This privatisation madness has to stop. When it comes to essential services, they must remain in the public's hands.